I really wanted to tell a story about legacy and about what it really means to be in love, not just like the adolescent or nostalgic way of being in love, but truly like what that means. And for me, like I haven't been in a position and haven't really been around like in life long enough to really be able to answer that question truthfully. And so a big thing for me was talking to my grandparents and figuring out what it was that kind of kept them together and like what keeps a marriage strong and like what keeps you wanting to stay around that person rather than giving up or just getting tired of that person and going somewhere else. Like what is it that keeps you engaged with them enough that you, through all the faults of your own and through the faults of them, like what keeps you both going and what keeps this marriage still afloat and what keeps the flame still lit. And I think it's just like, from what I gathered, it was like it's a feeling. It's just like it's what you felt when you first met them, and it may not be that fresh of a feeling, but it's still there, and there's still something living, and there's still something breathing. And I found that really interesting. There wasn't like a secret code or some sort of like cheat to this. It was very much just like straightforward. Like this is what love is, and love is this feeling that you feel for this person, and though it may shape itself to be a bit abstract or even difficult at times, like it's something that you just innately want to make work. And then a second conversation I had was with my mom, and she was saying that people now who get married, and this, at least for me, it's like I don't think this is just like something that's new, but maybe it's more talked about, is that you make these vows to a person that you say you love and you say you care about, but as soon as a roadblock comes up or as soon as something happens that makes this journey with this person difficult, we tend to take a back step and leave or just not try anymore. Yet we made the choice, or these people made a choice, to be with each other forever. They recited these vows in front of each other and in front of their loved ones. It's one of those things that it's a promise, and it's not something that necessarily is wrong if that you walk away from it. I think that's why it's so easy for people to kind of clean their hands and to move on. And again, that's not something that I have experience with. And so for me, this film was more of a question of what does it mean to truly be in love with somebody and to stay with them for the entirety of both of your lives before one of you goes. And for me, I found that really interesting because I can't imagine being around somebody for 40 or 50 or 60 years and still feeling that feeling of love. That sounds like something really sacred, something really special. The other side of that is that, when you are in love and you are with this person, like no one has control of, the last day that you guys are going to spend together. Like that's just kind of up to whenever it's time for your time to go. What made me make the decision to set this film in hospice care was that, though from like the outside looking in, hospice care seems like this really depressing and sad time of life, and it's obviously not the greatest setting for someone to come visit their loved one. But what's really incredible is that there's like this predicted last day. We don't have any control of whenever we're going to leave this planet, and to know that when you have a loved one in hospice care, to know that there is at least an estimate of like, this is the last day, or this is the last week, or this is the last month. I feel like that gives a lot of closure, to allow yourself to really say everything you've ever wanted to say and be whoever it is you've wanted to be with that person. Whenever you do lose somebody unexpectedly, I think the big regret is I wish I told them something more. I wish I experienced this with them, or I wish I just would have had these last moments together. With hospice care, you get that final moment with that person. And so I found it really beautiful to write from that perspective of, here it is, you get this final moment with this person that you've spent almost your entire life with, and you've been madly in love with them. You know, what is it that you talk about? And I think what would happen in that scenario, at least in my head, is that you've been with this person every single day, and that sort of mundaneness of you being around them all the time, I feel like you just get used to them being there, and vice versa. With that being said, I think with the mundaneness of that and with the sort of monotony of it all, what happens is that I think we take people for granted, and not in necessarily a negative way, but just you get used to saying good night and good morning to that person every day for 40, 50, 60 years. And I think you just sort of get used to them being around. But when you finally realize that this is the last time saying good night or good morning, I feel like you start to really think about what it is that you've been wanting to say and that you just never even have thought about saying, because in your eyes, you know, you're going to see them the next morning you wake up. But what happens when that moment comes that you aren't going to see them that next morning? It's just a final conversation. I found that really beautiful because you can know someone your entire life, but it's not until you're sort of put against a wall when you only have like one moment to speak to them, and that's the last conversation, that I think the most authentic conversation and sort of real moment comes from. It's the same thing when you hear about people who get diagnosed with a disease or get diagnosed with something that limits their life, and it puts them in a place where they only have a projected amount of time to live. And you'll hear that within that 3, 6 month, 12 month, 18-month period, they did more in that time than they've done in their entire lives. And there's something about having time put against you that allows you to really elevate and be your truest self. So what happens when you have two people who feel like they know each other perfectly have this final moment together? And for me, I feel like the whole saying of you don't know what you have until it's gone would really ring true in this scenario. Mark not knowing that Sarah's been this light for him this entire time. Not that he hasn't appreciated her, but just because it's just normal. Her being in his life is just a part of his day-to-day. But I think when you start to extract what happens in your day-to-day, and even you take apart the monotonous of it all, I think you realize that the monotonous is really extravagant. And the goal for me with this film was to say, look at the people in your life and realize how important they are. Even though you may know that, really take a moment to realize everyone around you, you know, from your grandparents to your parents to your friends to your coworkers, no matter what role they played in your life, they've shaped it in some incredible way. And for me, I think, you know, this was one way to tell that, and one story to tell that would reflect that, and I'm really happy with how it came out.